The arrival, the sensor arrays on Mars Station 7 detected them first. A ripple in space-time, followed by the emergence of something that shouldn't exist. 17 massive vessels tore through the fabric of reality at the edge of the solar system, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian against the starfield. War Master Korath stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominance, his forearms clasped behind his back in a posture of absolute confidence. The Valdari had conquered 47 star systems in the past century alone. Earth would be number 48. Initial scans, Navigator Prill, Korath commanded, his mandibles clicking with anticipation. The younger Valdari officer's skin flickered through colors indicating mild confusion. War Master, the planet appears underdeveloped. Single-world civilization, no significant military presence beyond the primary planet's orbit. Some satellites, space stations, mining operations on their moon and nearby planets. Nothing that poses a threat to the fleet. Korath's laugh resonated through the bridge, a sound like grinding metal. Typical. Another species that wasted their evolutionary potential on comfort rather than conquest. He gestured to his communications officer. Transmit Standard Protocol 7. Demand their unconditional surrender. Tell them they have 12 of their hours to comply. The message was sent, powerful enough to reach every communication device on Earth and throughout their modest solar system. The Valdari didn't expect resistance. They never did. In Korath's experience, species that couldn't even colonize their neighboring worlds properly were hardly worth the ammunition. War Master, his tactical officer reported, we're receiving a response already. Of course they're quick to grovel, Korath said, settling into his command throne. Display it. Earth's response. In the Situation Room buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Mira Talon watched the Valdari transmission with eyes that had forgotten how to show fear. She'd been 10 years old when the protocol was first implemented, part of the generation that grew up knowing this day would come. They gave us 12 hours, Admiral Orrin Vance said quietly, his weathered hand steady on the briefing table. That's almost polite by conquest standards. Talon allowed herself a thin smile. Run the simulation one more time. Every station, every platform, every hidden asset. I want 0.001% margin of error. The holographic display above the table exploded into light. What appeared to be an ordinary solar system transformed into something else entirely. A 3-dimensional web of death spanning billions of kilometers. Every research station, every mining facility, every communications satellite revealed its true purpose. General Chen Wei, head of planetary defense, whistled low. 100 years of construction, $60 trillion, the lives of 3 million engineers and soldiers who never saw sunlight, so the project would remain secret. All for this moment. They didn't die in vain, Talon said firmly. What's the status of the civilian evacuations? 93% complete, Chen reported. Deep shelters across every continent. The remaining 7% have been notified they have 8 hours. Vance pulled up historical files, images of a scarred Earth from a century ago. Burning cities, poisoned oceans, a species on the brink of extinction from its own hand. We almost destroyed ourselves, he said softly. Nuclear war, climate collapse, resource depletion. We came within minutes of total annihilation. And in those minutes we learned something, Talon added, her voice hard as diamond. We learned that the only thing more dangerous than humanity destroying itself is humanity with something to protect. The protocol had been born in those desperate years. World governments, finally unified by shared extinction, made a choice. If they survived their own worst impulses, they would never be vulnerable to anyone else's. Every resource, every brilliant mind, every ounce of industrial capacity was poured into a single project. They turned their entire solar system into a weapon. Simulation complete, the AI coordinator announced. Estimated enemy fleet casualties in first engagement, 87%. Probability of total enemy fleet destruction, 99.6%. Talon stood, smoothing her jacket. Draft the response. We'll give them 24 hours instead of 12. I want history to record that we were more merciful than they were. Madam President, Vance said carefully, they're not going to take the warning seriously. I know, Talon replied, but we have to give them the choice. That's what separates us from them. The warning Korath was reviewing tactical formations when the human response arrived. He expected groveling, Perhaps some futile attempt at negotiation. Instead, he got 17 seconds of video that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The human leader appeared, a female by their biological indicators, her face carved from determination and something else, something Korath didn't immediately recognize because he'd never seen it directed at him before. Pity. "I am President Mira Talon of the United Earth Government," she said, her voice carrying across the void. "You have entered our star system with hostile intent. You have demanded our surrender. I'm going to give you something your species apparently doesn't offer. A choice." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes boring into the camera. "Leave our system within 24 hours. Turn your ships around, jump back to wherever you came from, and never return. Tell your leaders that Earth is not interested in conflict, but we are prepared for it." A pause. In that silence, Korath felt the first stirring of unease. "This is not a negotiation," Talon continued. "This is not a bluff. This is a warning given once and only once. We know what you are. We know what you've done to 47 other civilizations. We know you see us as weak, as primitive, as easy prey." Her expression hardened. "You're wrong. Leave now or perish. Those are your options. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Korath stared at the blank screen for 3 full seconds before his bridge erupted in laughter. Navigator Prill's skin flashed colors of amusement. The weapons officers clicked their mandibles in mirth. "Did she actually threaten us?" Prill gasped between laughs. "War Master, they have no fleet." "No orbital defense platforms. Their most advanced weapons are chemical rockets." Korath smiled, but the expression felt forced. There had been something in the human female's eyes. Not fear, not desperation. Something else. Certainty. "Tactical," he ordered. "Full spectrum scan of the system. I want every asteroid, every moon, every piece of floating debris cataloged and analyzed. War Master, that will take hours." "Do it," Korath snapped, "and send a response to the human leader. Tell her," he paused, considering. "Tell her we appreciate her bravery, but bravery without power is just suicide. Inform her that we will begin orbital bombardment of her major cities in exactly 24 hours, unless she surrenders unconditionally." As his crew scrambled to obey, Korath studied the star chart. Sol system, 3rd planet from a yellow dwarf star. Nothing special, nothing threatening. So why did his combat instincts, honed over 30 years of warfare, whisper that something was very, very wrong? Final preparations on Earth. The countdown clocks appeared everywhere. 24 hours, 1,440 minutes. Every citizen could see it on their devices, on public displays, counting down to either salvation or annihilation. In the underground command center, Admiral Vance stood before a wall of screens showing every hidden asset in the solar system. Each one pulsed with a soft green light. Armed operational waiting. "Mercury Station reports ready," his operations officer called out. "Solar focusing arrays charged to 98%. They can sustain fire for 17 minutes before cooldown. Venus antimatter production facilities are at full capacity," another voice reported. 240 warheads distributed across drone carriers. Awaiting deployment orders. Asteroid Belt Defensive Network is active. 12,000 autonomous hunter-killer drones in stealth configuration. Jupiter railgun platforms locked and loaded. Projectile velocity will reach 0.12 light speed. Neptune Station confirms exotic weapon systems operational. The reports continued, each one a testament to a century of paranoid preparation. Vance had been a young lieutenant when the protocol began. Now his hair was silver, his face mapped with wrinkles, and he was about to see if humanity's greatest gamble would pay off. "Sir," his executive officer said quietly, "the Valdari scans are getting more thorough." "They're nervous." "Good," Vance replied. "Nervous enemies make mistakes, but they won't find anything. We've hidden in plain sight for 100 years. They're looking for military installations. They won't recognize them until it's too late." On Mercury, disguised as solar research stations, massive arrays calibrated their focusing mirrors. Each one could channel the raw fury of the sun into a beam precise enough to burn through a battleship's hull from 100 million kilometers away. On Venus, beneath clouds of sulfuric acid, antimatter production facilities completed their final batches. Each warhead contained enough antimatter to annihilate a city. The Valdari ships were much larger than cities. In the asteroid belt, what appeared to be mining drones and debris fields waited in perfect stillness. Beneath their ordinary exteriors, quantum processors ran invasion scenarios, calculating firing solutions, predicting enemy movements with AI precision that had been refined for decades. Jupiter's research outposts on Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto weren't outposts at all. They were weapons platforms, each one housing electromagnetic railguns capable of accelerating tungsten projectiles to 12% of light speed. At those velocities, even a small slug carried the kinetic energy of a nuclear weapon. And Neptune, distant, frigid Neptune, hid something else entirely. Something experimental. Something that had required 20 years of testing and cost the lives of 600 scientists. Reality displacement cannons, weapons that didn't just destroy matter. They removed it from existence by briefly pushing it into alternate dimensions. President Talon joined Vance at the command center, her presence drawing immediate attention. "How long until they move?" she asked. "Based on their patrol patterns, they'll advance within 18 hours, Vance replied. "They're testing our boundaries, probing for defenses. They still think we're bluffing. And our people? Shelters are at 99% capacity. The last evacuations will complete within 3 hours. After that, the surface belongs to the defense grid." Talon nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on the countdown. "I keep thinking about the other civilizations. The 47 worlds they conquered. Species that surrendered hoping for mercy and found none. Parents who watched their children enslaved. Cultures erased. We're not them," Vance said firmly. "We're not surrendering." "No," Talon agreed. "We're not. But Orin, when this is over, the galaxy is going to see what we're capable of. They're going to see what desperation and 100 years of focused paranoia can create. They'll see Earth not as a potential victim but as something else. A threat? A warning," she corrected. "We're about to show the galaxy what happens when you corner a species that's already survived its own apocalypse. We're about to teach them that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology." "What is it then?" Talon's smile was cold. "Our memory. We remember what it's like to nearly die. We remember the edge of extinction, and we've spent a century making absolutely certain we never go back." In orbit above Earth, Korath finally received his detailed scan results. His tactical officer's skin had gone pale, a Valdari stress response. "War Master, the scans are strange. There are anomalies throughout the system. Power signatures that don't match the infrastructure, density irregularities in the asteroid belt, unusual electromagnetic readings near the gas giants." Korath felt his stomach tighten. "Meaning? I don't know, sir. It could be natural phenomena, or sensor errors, or they're hiding something," Korath finished. He stared at the holographic display of the Sol system, seeing it with new eyes. "Could they have? No. Impossible. A single-world species couldn't possibly have weaponized their entire star system. Could they? War Master orders?" Korath made his decision. Fear was for lesser species. The Valdari Dominion did not retreat from threats, real or imagined. All ships advance formation Beta 7. "We'll demonstrate our power by destroying their moon. That should convince them to—" His words died as every sensor on the bridge suddenly screamed with alarm. Every screen showed the same thing. Across the solar system, from Mercury to Neptune, thousands of hidden signatures were coming online simultaneously. The system was waking up, and it was angry. "War Master," his tactical officer whispered, her skin flickering through colors of pure terror. "They weren't hiding defenses. They are the defense. The entire system. It's all weapons. All of it." Korath opened his mouth to give the retreat order. He was 12 seconds too late. The awakening. The first shot came from Mercury. It wasn't a missile or a kinetic projectile. It was light itself, concentrated, focused, and carrying the raw fury of a star. The solar focusing array, 300 kilometers across and disguised for decades as a terraforming research station, redirected a beam of solar radiation so intense it could vaporize tungsten in microseconds. The Valdari cruiser, Relentless Fang, never saw it coming. One moment it was advancing confidently toward Mars. The next, a column of stellar fire punched through its forward shields as if they were made of paper, cored through 17 decks and erupted out the other side. The ship's antimatter containment failed spectacularly, adding its own death scream to the cosmos. "Evasive maneuvers," Korath roared, but his fleet was already fragmenting in panic. "Return fire! Locate that weapon platform." "War Master, it's not a platform," Navigator Prill shouted, her skin flashing through colors of pure terror. It's an entire installation on their innermost planet. The power output it's drawing directly from their sun. A second beam lanced out from Mercury, then a third. 2 more Valdari ships died in flowers of nuclear fire. The Eternal Dominance banked hard, its inertial dampener screaming as Korath's helmsman threw them into a spiral. All weapons, target their Mercury installation. I want it reduced to... The asteroid belt exploded. What Korath had dismissed as mining debris and dormant industrial equipment revealed its true nature. 12,000 autonomous hunter-killer drones emerged from stealth, their angular forms suddenly visible as active camouflage fields dropped. They moved with insect-like precision, swarms of them converging on the Valdari fleet from every angle. These weren't crude missiles. Each drone was an AI-guided weapon system, equipped with quantum processors that had been running invasion simulations for 100 years. They knew every Valdari ship class, every tactical doctrine, every defensive pattern. They'd been waiting their entire electronic existence for this moment. The first wave struck like a school of metallic piranhas. They were small, each no larger than a Valdari fighter craft, but they didn't need to be big. They were fast and smart and everywhere. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen watched from her station on Luna Base as her children went to war. She'd designed the hunter-killers' behavioral algorithms 20 years ago, trained them on every scrap of intelligence humanity had gathered about aggressive spacefaring species. Now they performed their deadly ballet with mathematical perfection. Drone Swarm Alpha engaging targets 7 through 14, her AI coordinator reported, in a calm voice that belied the carnage on screen. Penetration successful. Internal detonations detected. The drones were too small for Valdari point defense systems to track effectively. They slipped through overlapping fields of fire, used the larger ships as cover, and when they struck, they burrowed deep before detonating shaped nuclear charges designed to maximize internal damage. The Valdari battleship, Crimson Conquest, shuddered as 17 drones punched through its hull in a coordinated strike pattern. The internal explosions created a cascade failure that ripped the ship apart from the inside out, its own power systems adding to the destruction. Korath watched in mounting horror as his fleet's tactical display transformed into a constellation of red warning indicators. 17 ships had entered the system. In less than 4 minutes, he'd lost 6, and the humans weren't even using their main fleet because they didn't have one. They'd turned the system itself into a weapon. "Get us to the outer system," Korath commanded. "We'll regroup near the gas giants, establish a defensive perimeter. War Master Venus Station is launching." The onslaught. The launch bays hidden beneath Venus's crushing atmosphere had been built by autonomous construction drones working in conditions that would kill any biological being in seconds. The atmospheric pressure alone was 92 times Earth's surface pressure. The temperature could melt lead. The clouds were sulfuric acid. It was the perfect place to build an antimatter production facility. 240 drone carriers emerged from Venus like a swarm of locusts, each one containing multiple antimatter warheads. The drones accelerated hard, pulling 12G maneuvers that would have turned biological pilots into paste. They spread out in a 3-dimensional net, cutting off every escape vector the Valdari fleet might attempt. Admiral Vance watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "Venus package deployed. Predicted intercept in 90 seconds. Jupiter platforms, prepare to fire on my mark." "Sir, Valdari fleet is attempting to form a defensive sphere formation," his tactical officer reported. "Let them. They're clustering. That makes our job easier." On the Eternal Dominance, Korath's weapons officer was screaming coordinates. "Incoming drone swarm. 200 plus contacts. They're too fast. Point defense can't track them." "Scatter the fleet," Korath ordered. "Break formation," and the first antimatter warhead detonated 17 kilometers from the Valdari carrier. Endless subjugation. When matter and antimatter meet, they annihilate each other completely, converting all mass directly into energy according to Einstein's famous equation. The explosion released the equivalent of a 50-megaton nuclear weapon in a sphere of pure gamma radiation. The carrier's shields held for exactly 1.3 seconds before collapsing. The hull, designed to withstand conventional weapons, offered no more protection than tissue paper. The ship simply ceased to exist, converted into expanding plasma. Then the second warhead hit. And the third, and the fourth. The Valdari fleet was engulfed in a storm of annihilation. Ships died screaming across all frequencies. Their crews vaporized before they could even process what was happening. Antimatter didn't leave wreckage, it left nothing but slowly cooling gas. Jump! Jump now! Korath ordered, abandoning any pretense of tactical positioning. All ships, emergency FTL. We can't, sir. We're too deep in their gravity. Well, we need to reach the outer system first, which meant running the gauntlet past Jupiter. General Marcus Okonkwo commanded Jupiter defense from Europa Station, built into the ice moon's shell 3 kilometers down. His railgun platforms had been the most expensive component of the protocol, each one requiring exotic materials and precision engineering that took years per unit. But when you could accelerate a tungsten rod to 12% of light speed, you didn't need many shots to ruin someone's day. Target solutions confirmed. His weapons coordinator reported. Enemy fleet trajectory suggests they're trying to slingshot around Jupiter to build up speed for FTL jump. Predicted path intercept? Okonkwo asked. 97% confidence in the solution, sir. Okonkwo allowed himself a cold smile. Then let's introduce them to kinetic warfare. All platforms fire. 27 railgun platforms distributed across Jupiter's 4 largest moons opened fire simultaneously. The electromagnetic launchers hurled their projectiles with such force that the recoil actually altered the moon's orbits by measurable fractions. Each projectile was a tungsten telephone pole, 3 meters long and massing 200 kilograms. At 12% of light speed, each one carried the kinetic energy of a 50-kiloton nuclear weapon. And they were completely silent, invisible on sensors until the moment of impact. The Valdari destroyer Swift Death was the first to die. A railgun slug hit it amidships traveling at 36,000 kilometers per second. The impact vaporized the ship's entire center section in a microsecond, the shockwave snapping the fore and aft sections like twigs. The pieces tumbled away, glowing white-hot from the friction of air released from ruptured compartments. More slugs followed, each one precisely targeted by AI systems that had calculated the trajectories down to the millimeter. The Valdari ships tried to evade, but you can't dodge something traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. By the time your sensors register its position, it's already hit you. 3 more ships died in the railgun barrage. 2 more suffered critical damage, venting atmosphere and spinning out of control as their maneuvering systems failed. Korath's fleet, what remained of it, was being systematically dismantled. Of the 17 ships that had entered the system with such confidence, only 6 were still combat effective. The rest were debris, radiation, or tumbling wrecks. Sir, we're approaching the edge of the gravity well, his navigator reported, her voice shaking. Another 2 minutes and we can jump. 2 minutes. Korath could keep his ship alive for 2 minutes. He had to. The Valdari Dominion needed to know what they'd encountered here. Someone had to warn them that Earth wasn't just another conquest. It was a death trap. All remaining ships maximum burn for the edge, he commanded. Divert all power from weapons to engines. We're running. For the first time in Valdari history, their fleet was retreating. And then Neptune spoke. Neptune's Fury Doctor. Elizabeth Kovach had spent 20 years developing the reality displacement cannon, and it had cost her everything, her health, her family, 600 colleagues who died in testing accidents, and possibly her sanity. The weapon didn't just destroy matter. It displaced it, briefly, catastrophically. It punched holes between dimensions. Target acquired, her weapons coordinator announced from Neptune Station, a facility built into Triton and staffed entirely by people who'd volunteered, knowing they might not survive to see the weapon used. Valdari flagship and escort cruisers attempting to flee the system. Kovach stared at the targeting display. The math was beautiful in its horror. By creating a controlled dimensional breach, they could shunt matter into a parallel dimensional space where the fundamental forces operated differently. The result was, well, result was probably the wrong word. Consequence was more accurate. Fire, she whispered. The reality displacement cannon didn't produce a visible beam or projectile. Instead, it created a bubble of altered spacetime that propagated outward at light speed. When the bubble intersected with the eternal dominance, the effects were immediate and nightmarish. On the bridge, Korath felt reality hiccup. The sensation was impossible to describe, like falling sideways through a direction that didn't exist. Alarms screamed as the ship's sensors registered readings that made no physical sense. "What's happening?" he demanded. His science officer looked up with eyes wide with existential terror. "Sir, local space is experiencing dimensional shearing. The atomic strong force it's changing. Matter cohesion the forward third of the eternal dominance simply came apart. Not exploded, not vaporized. The molecular bonds holding it together stopped working. Atoms drifted apart like dust, no longer held in place by the fundamental forces that governed normal matter. The ship was dissolving at the molecular level. Korath's last thought before the dimensional shear reached the bridge was a strange one. They warned us. They actually warned us. The reality displacement wave continued, catching 2 escort cruisers in its periphery. They suffered partial effects, hull plating sublimating into atomic fog, crew members experiencing fatal molecular dissociation. The ships tumbled away, half real, more ghost than vessel. The aftermath 17 hours after the Valdari fleet had entered the solar system. 4 damaged ships limped across the FTL threshold and vanished. Of the 13 that didn't make it, there was almost nothing left, some expanding debris clouds, pockets of radiation, and gravitational anomalies where Neptune's weapon had briefly rewritten physics. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Talon watched the last enemy ships disappear from the screens. The room was silent except for the hum of electronics and the breathing of people who couldn't quite believe they were still alive. "Damage assessment?" she asked quietly. Admiral Vance consulted his reports. Mercury Station suffered minor damage from retaliatory fire. 2 drone carriers were destroyed. We lost 43 hunter-killer drones. Jupiter Platform 7 on Ganymede is offline due to coolant failure. Neptune Station. He paused. Neptune Station reports 15 casualties from dimensional bleed-through. Dr. Kovach is among them. Talon closed her eyes briefly. Elizabeth Kovach, who'd given everything to create humanity's most terrible weapon and then died from its side effects. See that her family is taken care of. Full military honors. Her name goes on the memorial. Yes, ma'am. And the civilian casualties? 0, Vance reported, a note of wonder in his voice. The evacuation protocols worked perfectly. Not a single civilian was harmed. For a moment, Talon allowed herself to feel the weight lift. They'd done it. A century of preparation, of sacrifice, of turning their entire civilization into a hidden fortress, it had worked. Earth survived. But survival came with a price. Draft a message, Talon ordered. Broadcast it on all frequencies. I want every spacefaring species in this region of the galaxy to receive it. As the communications team prepared the equipment, Talon stood before the camera. She looked tired, 100 years of collective paranoia etched into her features, but her eyes were steady. This is President Mira Talon of Earth, she began. 17 hours ago, the Valdari Dominion entered our system with the intention of conquest. We warned them to leave. They refused. What you're seeing now is what remains of their fleet. The camera feed cut to images of the battlefield, expanding debris clouds, radiation signatures, the ghostly remnants of ships that had been touched by dimensional shear. Let me be absolutely clear, Talon continued. Earth does not seek conflict. We have no interest in conquest, in empire, in domination. But we remember our history. A century ago, we nearly destroyed ourselves. We know what extinction looks like. We've seen it in our nightmares. We've felt its breath on our necks. She leaned forward, her voice hardening. So we made a choice. We decided that if we survived our own worst impulses, we would never be vulnerable to anyone else's. We spent 100 years turning our solar system into a fortress. Not because we wanted to threaten others, but because we refused to be threatened ourselves. A pause, letting the words sink in. The Valdari came here believing we were weak. They saw a single-planet civilization and assumed we were primitive. They were wrong. We are not weak. We are the survivors of self-inflicted apocalypse. We are the children of nuclear fire and environmental collapse. We are the species that learned, at the very edge of extinction, that the only thing more dangerous than humanity at war with itself is humanity united in defense of its survival. Talon's expression softened slightly. We don't want to be your enemies. We don't want to be your conquerors. In fact, we'd prefer to be your trading partners, your cultural exchange programs, your friends. But we will settle for being left alone. Come to our system in peace and you'll find peace. Come with hostile intent and you'll find what the Valkyrie found. She stood. This is not a threat. This is not posturing. This is a promise. Backed by 100 years of preparation and the desperation of a species that knows what it's like to die. Earth is not a prize to be claimed. It's a warning. Learn from it. The transmission ended. 40 light-years away, War Master Korath sat in the medical bay of his flagship, or what remained of it. His left side had been caught in the edge of a dimensional shear. The medic said he was lucky. He'd only lost an arm and part of his torso. 300 of his crew hadn't been lucky at all. He dictated his report to the Dominion High Command with a voice that no longer carried any arrogance. Recommend immediate classification of Sol system as forbidden territory. Humanity is not a conquest target. They are a death trap. They have weaponized their entire star system in ways we cannot counter with current technology. Survival probability for any attacking force less than 5%. He paused, staring at the empty space where his arm used to be. They warned us, in their language, in ours, in clear terms. We didn't listen. That was our mistake. The report concluded with a single word that had never before appeared in Valdari military documents. Retreat. In the weeks that followed, Earth's message propagated across the galaxy. Other species, some warlike, some peaceful, all cautious, marked the Sol system on their star charts with a new designation. Not habitable planet, not primitive civilization, not potential conquest. The notation simply read, Warning, do not approach. Defensive capabilities exceed threat assessment parameters. Some alien strategists studied the battle recordings and felt a chill. A single-planet species that could destroy a Dominion fleet without fielding a single dedicated warship. What could they do if they actually built a navy? Others saw opportunity. Earth clearly had advanced technology. Perhaps trade agreements could be negotiated carefully, respectfully, with many assurances of peaceful intent. But most simply stayed away. The galaxy had learned a lesson that the Valdari paid for in blood and broken ships. Some species were prey, some were predators, and some were neither. They were the ones you didn't push, the ones you didn't test, the ones who'd been to hell and climbed back out carrying weapons forged in their own darkness. Humanity was the third kind. President Talon stood in the Memorial Garden, a facility built to honor everyone who'd contributed to the protocol. 3 million names were carved into black stone walls that curved like protective arms around a garden of earth plants, a reminder of what they'd fought to preserve. Admiral Vance joined her, his footsteps quiet on the gravel path. The latest reports are in, he said. 17 different species have requested diplomatic contact, all emphasizing peaceful intentions. Some are offering technology exchanges. Good, Talon replied. That's what we wanted. Respect through strength, but openness to friendship. There's something else, Vance added. Long-range sensors have detected 3 more civilizations marking our system as restricted territory. Not hostile, just cautious. They're treating us like a natural hazard, like a black hole you navigate around. Talon smiled sadly. Is that what we've become? A hazard? We've become survivors, Vance corrected. We've become the species that other species think twice about before threatening. For the first time in human history, we're truly safe. Not because we're hidden, not because we're protected by someone else, but because we made ourselves too dangerous to attack. They stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by the names of the dead, the engineers who'd worked in secret, the soldiers who'd manned hidden stations, the scientists who'd died testing terrible weapons. All of them had given everything so that humanity could give a warning and have it mean something. Do you think we did the right thing? Talon asked quietly. Vance considered the question. I think we did the necessary thing. Whether it was right, history will decide. But those 3 million people died so that 8 billion could live without fear. I can sleep with that. Talon nodded. So can I. Above them, beyond Earth's atmosphere, the solar system's defenses remained active. Mercury's solar arrays kept their focusing mirrors aligned. Venus continued producing antimatter. The asteroid belt's hunter-killers ran their endless simulations. Jupiter's railguns maintained their orbits. And Neptune, distant and cold, kept its reality displacement cannon charged and ready, not as weapons of conquest, as a promise kept. Earth had warned them. Earth had given them a choice. And when they'd chosen wrong, Earth had shown the galaxy what desperation, ingenuity, and a century of determined preparation could create. The warning remained in effect. Broadcast on all frequencies in every known language. One final warning from Earth: leave now, or perish. The galaxy had learned to listen,